Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Always Forward podcast, and this one's special. They're all special, but this one's really special because those of you I've talked about Mr. Weisler a lot, but it's nice to have you actually in on the table on the podcast. Last time we talked, we were in the car. We did a podcast in the car.
Backseat.
We were talking about initiative.
We were backseat driving initiative.
Yeah, Allie was driving, and we had like the little recording device with some old microphones.
Trying to get you guys to the airport.
Yeah, in time. We were we just did a kind of like a mastermind teaching thing for a company.
But Nick's so freaking obsessively just productive. He's like, no, we're not going to waste this time chatting it up. We're going to freaking do something.
We're going to record something.
We're going to try and make a change in the world. Let's go.
So I set the camera on the console there, and then went from there. Anyways, so those who don't know, Kirk was a big part of my personal success. I met you early on in my transition. We've been friends for almost 10 years. And he's been a kind of a mentor and a coach to me. And not only that, as I've progressed in my career, and the things that I do, it's weird to say it a career. I don't know. I don't work for anybody.
Your journey.
My journey.
Your journey.
You've kind of turned into kind of like my speaking coach almost. Like every time I present, we kind of like do a little hot wash and like, if you would have said this thing just a little bit, like that, it would have punched.
I feel like what I say is that was awesome.
Yeah, I get that, but
to be fair, Nick's an operator, and operators always want to get better. They want to say, they want the real deal. Where could we have made this thing a little tighter? Where could we have tightened the shot group? That kind of thing. And right.
And you were in the book. You're an excommunicated warrior on the audio book.
Yeah. Well, that was a great honor to be in your book.
Yeah. So for those of you who haven't read or listened to, or at least haven't listened to Excommunicated Warrior, the 7 Stages of Transition, Kirk offers some insight into some of those chapters. So each one of those chapters is read, and then after those chapters is followed up with a podcast basically discussing the chapter.
Right.
I think the audiobook's way better. I don't make anything off the audiobook really.
No.
A couple cents, but I think if I'm going to tell somebody to buy the book, and I'm going to go get the audiobook, because there's just is a whole nother level of value that gets brought thanks to Kirk.
Your audiobook, that Excommunicated Warrior, a couple of the guys at this retreat you just hosted, they talked about that. That was a big deal for them.
Really?
They were like, this.
Oh, Diego.
Yeah. It was your story that just, he said, I'd already been through all these programs, trying to do all these things, and nothing was, I was going through all the self-help stuff. I was going through Tony Robbins stuff. But Nick, in that book, it just laid perfectly over my life. And that was a big deal for him. That was why he was there.
It's a very practical, very practical solution to an unpractical problem, I guess.
Yeah.
Identity crisis a little bit.
Well,
but so what do we so real quick, Kirk, you're a ranger. You're a pickle suit ranger.
A long, when you say pickle suit, I think that pretty much reveals, that must have been a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
A long time. 84 to 88 were my active duty years back in the day. Join the Army, see the world,
Yeah.
And you got stationed at Fort Benning that was infantry, airborne, ranger school, and then of course they put the 3rd Ranger Battalion, Fort Benning. So it was not as adventurous as I'd hoped it'd be, but it was still, I still can.
You got in trouble, right? A lot. Trouble.
I did. I was not that I was a big bad ass rebel ranger. I wasn't. I just thought some of the things we did didn't make sense, and I thought we should talk about it.
How did that go over?
0
with the post Vietnam
Let me give you an example. Here's an example.
Yeah.
So here we are. I don't think I'm a PFC yet. I think I'm just a private 1 or 2. And we're
Private Weisler.
We're at a Sandhill Starship, kind of a thing. The 3rd Ranger Battalion area is still being built out, and they're going to put a huge gym in there for the Rangers to work out.
Yeah.
Well, I happen to know a couple of the guys in my platoon ran their own gyms in California, but filled with patriotism. These guys had successful gyms right off the beach.
Yeah.
Jeff Tokaji is one of them. And so this guy was just huge, and he knew, right? He was a part of that beach community. He was all about working out. So I thought, you know what? I think these guys should be tapped to help build out the gym. So I had
this is Private Weisler's advice.
This was my advice. Yeah. So, and I couldn't get anyone to move on it. So I said, well, the colonel's got an open door policy. So I walked into Colonel's office and I said, hey, and he was like, okay, here, I said, you got open door? He goes, open door. So I said, hey, I just think this, people support what they helped to create. I said, you got some gym rats right here in the battalion. I put these guys on the task to help build out your gym.
Yeah.
And he nodded and he was gracious. But by the time I left his office, he'd already called my first sergeant and my captain. By the time I got back down to my company area, man, I spent the next 2.5 hours just getting freaking reamed out. And I thought I was doing the right thing, doing a good thing, doing a helpful thing, but nobody appreciated that. And that's not how it works.
Welcome to the Army.
Yeah. And I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, there's expertise right here. You guys building out the gym are worried about POs and freaking purchasing orders. You don't have any experience. Why are we doing it this way? So that's how I got in trouble. I just thought that doesn't make sense.
So what happened to the gym?
Well, they built the gym they wanted to build, and then over the next 3 years, they changed it
to what you would have helped in the first time.
Well, those guys would have. So I don't know.
That's the
that's
military-industrial complex.
I got in trouble, but I think like a lot of people believe they're doing the best thing or the right thing or whatever, and so I wasn't.
Did you walk in like this? You're like, hey, serve me.
No, I was told I was scared. I was a young private. Come on, I was scared. But I felt morally obligated to bring forth a suggestion that I thought was going to add the most value. And I wasn't doing it for me. I wasn't a gym rat.
Yeah.
But these guys were so excited about the gym. But then the way they saw the equipment that was being purchased and the way it was being installed, they were like, hey. And I was like, yeah, well, you guys should be talking to those guys. And nobody was talking. I just think people should talk. Smart people should get together and just share and learn from each other and build the best.
It's amazing when that stuff happens. It's kind of the reasons why I do what I do. Hell, that's the reason why I have these conversations right here. So you got out of you did the Army thing, and I guess that was probably one of many stories that you were like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get out. I don't think the Army's for me.
Yeah, no, I just
too much of a thinker.
Well, the thing is that my captain then, after 2 or 3 incidents like that, they just thought, no, this.
Oh, so this was an ongoing thing.
Well, yeah, I just thought, well, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? But I wasn't a troublemaker. I was the first guy in the Ranger to memorize the Ranger Creed. I was the first guy to be able to recite the Creed in front of the battalion at morning PT. So I was all in.
Yeah.
And I didn't come from any athletic background. So, but I learned how to run in the military. And so I was not the strongest soldier. But after a few months of running in basic and then airborne, the standards a little bit higher, I could barely do the push-ups for airborne school. I got in the Ranger battalion, then you got to go to qualification, Ranger qualification before you get the battalion. And so I was just squeaking by. So I was nobody's hero, but I was getting better all the time because my body was getting more conditioned. And then by the time I was at meeting and then excelling the standards, we're all waiting for a slot to go to Ranger school.
Yeah.
We're all waiting for that slot because we're Ranger battalion. We're waiting for slots to go to school.
It's kind of a competition too, right?
You don't want to be in the Ranger battalion and not have a Ranger tab.
Yeah.
So now I'm right by all the benchmarks of performance that they said, I was there.
Yeah.
And then I went in and I was bumped down. I was dropped 20 spots. I go, why am I dropped 20 spots? Captain doesn't like you. Captain Branch doesn't like you. Why doesn't he like you? Lieutenant Callahan, my lieutenant, he goes, he thinks you're kind of a wise ass. I go, oh, what do you mean? He says, well, Kirk, he says, because you have these ideas. And I go, but this guy was smoking dope. This guy has got freaking communicable diseases. I'm just trying to add some value, but I just couldn't wrap my head around the format of adding value. And so, but I just want to make sure that I wasn't a rebel. I wasn't this guy that was off. I really had this bright-eyed, naive optimism that things could be better. And if it didn't make sense, I thought we should talk about it. But Captain Branch said, no, just fall in line and be. But I thought we were supposed to be thinking soldiers. I thought we were supposed to be the best of the best. And so I just couldn't accept that. And in the end of the day, when I started losing school slots, I left the Ranger Battalion and I walked basically about a mile through the woods to the Ranger Department where they ran the Ranger course. And Sergeant Major Little John he said he saw me. I was a young buck sergeant by this time. He saw me and he said, what's going on? I said, I just told him candidly. And he said, we got a slot for you here. And boom. And I went to become part of the Ranger instructor cadre. And I thought, man, this is going to be a fantastic, right? My last 2 years running, being a part of the Ranger school and the Ranger course. This is going to be so great. But I got in trouble there too.
Because you had ideas.
Well, no, it was, we got a platoon sergeant and there was a couple soldiers there that weren't being treated fairly. And so these guys didn't have any interest in going to Ranger school. So this old school Ranger, this old mindset, right? The old dinosaur mindset. He thought he wasn't going to just bully these kids.
Yeah.
He was going to get them out with a dishonorable. but they were good kids. And so he was fabricating stuff that wasn't true. And so I thought, man, they can't do that. In the privates, they couldn't defend themselves.
Yeah.
So here I'm going, man, I don't want to be the safeguard. I'm nobody's hero.
Somebody's got to do it.
But I just said, you can't do that, Sergeant. And the next thing I know, man, he was in my face. And then he had another sergeant in the room who was going to be a witness, and he was going to get me to do something unlawful.
Yeah. And
so the louder he got, the quieter I got. And because he was trying to get me to, he wanted me to sign what was that? Article 15. He wanted me to sign an Article 15.
Yeah.
I said, I refuse to sign. And he's yelling, trying to get me to sign the thing to make the pain go away. And I said, I'm not signing. I'm not going to do it. And so they can sign it in your absence or whatever, that you refuse to sign or whatever, and you disagree. And I just thought, no, something's happening here and it's not right. And so I just walked out of there and I walked over to a colonel's office and I said, this just happened. I'm not sure what's going on, but this is what I see. This is what I feel. This is what I stood up for. This is what just happened. And 2 days later, that guy was gone.
Dang.
2 days later, that guy was gone. And there was a lot of other things associated with that, but that guy was gone. And I was like, man, this sucks. But when he was gone, I thought, great, this last year, Nick, is going to be my best year in the Rangers.
This is your year.
And that's when they started the 10th Mountain Division.
Yeah.
At Fort Benning. They're going to reestablish the light infantry, 10th Mountain Division. And those guys had been having morale problems they were killing. They were the worst thing on Fort Benning at the time. So they decided, the Department of the Army decided to fix this. They were going to pull some Rangers.
Yeah.
And make them leaders over at the 10th Mountain Division. And there's no way someone in special operations like yourself wants to get pulled and go beyond some.
Nope.
Right? Like,
nope.
Like they'd be like, hey, listen, we know you're doing recon, but we're going to put you in this tank. Right? We know you like jumping out of airplanes.
With these other guys.
Yeah. We know you like jumping out of airplanes and doing high speed stuff, but you're just going to go work with these guys. And it was, I just thought this is going to be, but Department of the Army. So I did everything I could to fight this. But in the end, my last year I spent in an infantry leg unit, which is what we call the non-airborne units.
Yeah.
And I thought this is going to be the worst year. And Nick, I did so many things to get out of that. So when I got over there, I already heard these guys sucked.
Yeah.
But of the battalion, this battalion of the division, this battalion didn't suck as much. So I went over there and did 2 sergeant majors of each battalion. So here's this Ranger. There began to be a fight in the lobby over this Ranger. Right? Not that I was anything special, but they both just wanted the Ranger tab.
Yeah.
They didn't know me. No, I had no reputation. So I want to be very clear. They didn't want me personally. They wanted. They all wanted
the one Ranger. And
so there was this fight. There was this fight, and these guys were colorful.
Yeah.
So then I thought so I ended up going into the wrong battalion. I was like, okay. So I had already done my pre-work. I knew as long as you end up in Bravo Company, those guys are the toilet bowl of this battalion. So and they have a recon.
Yeah.
Company. So anyway, long story short, I did 4 interventions to make sure I didn't end up exactly where I ended up. Everything worked against me and until the last minute when Lieutenant Callahan walks in and a different lieutenant walks in, and he was a guy I went through Ranger School with. And he was from freaking Bravo Company, the worst company of the worst battalion of the worst platoon. And he goes, hey, and he and I went to Ranger School together. And so that was it. He goes, he chose me. And then, Nick, I proceeded to have the very best year of my life. Because
in that Bravo Company platoon.
Because all these kids, all these 20, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids, like there was a kid, Lacona, from some island, some American freaking province island, who had his boots on the wrong feet. These kids changed my life. That's when I thought, you want to jump out of planes and be all hua and be all Ranger. And what's the most rewarding thing that you can do? It's help people grow and become.
Yeah, change people.
And that's where some of the real gifts of my military experience began to be manifest. I thought, no, I want to work with people. I want to help them build confidence, build skills. And it would be our platoon and my particular squad that would send more soldiers through Ranger School and a couple other pretty high-speed schools than any other squad in both battalions of the division.
Wow.
And that was me and Sergeant Emerson, another Ranger guy from 2nd Bat. And we just said, you know what? Things are weird around here, but we can work with these 10 guys.
That reminds me. So no wonder you had you had such a connection with.
I don't think I've told that story in 20 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Being with you young freaking Raider guys makes me want to, I just want to buoy you up and be accepted,
So I'm going to tie that into what you brought in this weekend. So this weekend we did a Raider Project retreat with a group of veterans and some guys about to retire.
Great man.
Beautiful weekend, wasn't it?
It was what a tone.
We did jiu-jitsu. We suffered an ice bath. Kirk did it twice. You're the only person that did it twice.
So Nick shows up with these 3 water troughs for freaking horses or something, and then shows up with a truck bed full of ice, and then just starts pouring these bags of ice until there was little room for water.
It's like a big slushy. They were like, "This is just a slushy."
The ice was setting. Oh, it wasn't flat. It was angled up like a mountain out of the freaking tubs. And so I'm like, "Are you sure we can get in there?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, all these muscled freaking tat guys that they're gonna. I'm like, okay.
There was some anxiety, wasn't there?
Yeah. Nick said, "Does anyone have any anxiety?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have anxiety, but I don't want to do it." And so he goes, "Great, you go first." Okay. I didn't think I could do it. But I knew that I was. I was like,
Not in front of these guys, right?
Yeah, I'm like, well, peer pressure now. I got to.
Yeah.
Right. I'm the oldest guy there. I've got the least body ink. I got the least muscle mass. I'm gonna have to freaking sit on the bottom of this thing. And
yeah, we had a vet. We had a vet that is now a marshal there, and he tried to bitch out.
He did.
You know who you are.
Well, let's just call him out, Justin. And
he listens. But
Justin's
yeah,
a star.
He is a star. Anyways, so yeah, it was a beautiful weekend. We'll talk more about that.
It was a lot of fun.
You delivered you changed some people's lives this weekend for sure. But in that weekend, you brought up a book by a commander. Was it The Best Ship in the Navy? Is that the name of the book?
Commander Abershoff. Yeah. It's Your Ship.
It's Your Ship. Can you tell that story real quick?
Oh my gosh. I'm guessing a lot of your tribe has probably familiar with this story, but
no,
if you're not,
definitely not.
If you're not, there's a wonderful book out there, and this should be on your freaking leadership list. This should be on your commander list. This should be on your management list. You and your team will be blessed by reading the book It's Your Ship by Commander Abershoff. And the short end of the story is that there was a ship in the Navy called the USS Benfold. One was probably still there. And it was the toilet bowl. At the time that this story took place, it was the worst performing ship in the entire naval fleet.
How is it the worst performing ship?
Okay, well, think about the ways any unit is measured. Yeah. You're measured by the amount of injuries you have, by the training scores you have, your PT scores, your firing scores, any way that they can measure a unit, they do, and they measure ships that well too. Your firing scores, are you ready for deployment, safety, all that stuff.
Yeah,
including military's track. Hey, are soldiers re-upping?
Yeah.
Is their experience in this military unit so positive they want 4 more years or 6 more, right?
Yeah.
So they had the lowest retention rate. These sailors were getting off the Benfold and going,
I'm out.
Yeah, because if their whole Navy experience is the Benfold,
yeah,
and the Benfold sucks, then the Navy sucks. In other words, the experience I'm having with you is associated with the brand that you're associated with. And so if you suck, they suck, right? And so they were leaving, and they weren't leaving saying great things about right? They're not going to help with the recruiting effort.
Right.
So all that was happening, and Abershoff inherits command of the Benfold. And the book even details that the change of command ceremony is usually a big deal for any unit. When they have a change of command, it's very formal. But the change of command ceremony was even irreverent and disrespectful, right? It was just... Now, the positive of this story is that...
Question, real quick.
Go ahead.
Was he in trouble? Is that why he got the ship?
I'm not sure how he ended up... I don't think he was in trouble.
No?
I think he came out of a Pentagon tour. I think he just wanted to get back. I think he was doing something.
They were like, here you go.
Yeah. Oh, you want to get back here? Hey, you think you're all that here? So anyway, he inherits command of the Benfold. And just long story short, Nick, why this is such a phenomenal leadership story is that he didn't put any of these soldiers in the Benfold, in the brig.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't kick any of them off the boat. And they were demoralized, they were dispirited, and they did not believe in leadership, discipline, or hope. With that crew, not another crew, because I don't want to have a fresh start. Let's just clean this ship and give me a fresh crew. Yeah. Give me a cohort unit that hasn't been spoiled.
Yeah.
But with that crew, they turned things around. In a very short time, the Benfold went from being the worst ship of the Navy to the best ship of the Navy.
Wow.
And one of the things he says in the book, he said to gain command of the ship, he had to give up control. And to gain control of the ship, he had to share command.
Mm.
And so when Simon Sinek gives his talk about leaders eat last, he's talking about Abrashoff, because he did away with the officers' mess, and he took him and his lieutenants and his officers, and they went to the back of the line behind the troops and ate in the same food, the same line, and they were always in the back of that line. Leaders eat last. So he did all those things that any one of us can do to change our home culture or our team culture or our organizational culture. It's your ship. It's total ownership, but this ownership is not in-your-face accountability. It's, what do you want to own?
Yeah.
It's a brilliant book.
And you said that there was some generals that would, or I guess admirals, or admirals that would.
Right. So every unit has a visiting whatever.
Right.
But a lot of us guys on the front line, we never saw them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're up there butt sniffing with each other, right? Depending on where they're at. But Abrashoff said not doing that. So if there was a visiting admiral to this ship, he's standing in the back of the line with Abrashoff and his guys, and Abrashoff said he was very intentional. When he'd get his tray, he'd look for a table that only had one chair on it, and he'd go squeeze in there. So the visiting admiral had to go, oh, I guess I'm not sitting with him. And he'd go sit with the guys on the front line.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing for some of these admirals, it's probably been a long time since that happened.
Yeah, right.
Right? And so, but all those little things, so Covey said in his 7 Habits book, he said, in relationships, those little things are the big things. So all these little things, right? There's a wonderful story about the British cyclist. Aggregation of marginal gains. You've heard the story?
No.
Okay. Listeners, here it is. Here's a wing it story about the aggregation of marginal gains. This is a true story. For 100 years, the British bicycling team has not done very well. So we're going to go pre-2003.
Okay.
And this goes back 100 years. There was even a time when cycle manufacturers didn't want the British cycling team to ride their bikes. That's how bad they were. So they didn't want any association with these guys. They sucked that bad. Okay? Right? These guys weren't winning anything. 2003, they get a new coach. I'll think of his name in a minute. But this new coach, he just says, okay, listen, people come in and try to turn the ship around just like that. But he had a different approach. He just asked the guys, he said, if we could all figure out some way that we could all get 1% better in some aspect of our cycling or in every aspect, and we added that all together, the aggregation of marginal gains would be significant. And they're like, wrapped their head around that. And the coach wasn't asking them to go from worst to first. He was saying, hey,
1%.
1%. What's 1% look like for you? And so the guys began to take a look at that. The coaching staff and the athletes all began to take a look at that. Okay. So they said, well, okay, I can get 1% better in this. And they knew their measure. And right, 1% wasn't asking, yeah, I could lean into that. But then they looked at their training. How could we get 1% better training? How can we get 1% better at nutrition? They began to explore. This 1% began to travel into every aspect, of their life as professional cyclists.
Mm.
And they look at the last 15 years of the British bicycling team, and you're going to see some world championships. You're going to see some gold medals. And you're going to see a lot of other teams that also adopted this philosophy, because anybody can look for small improvements that we can make. But when you begin the cumulative effect of that, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So go back to Abrashoff on his ship. One of the things he said he did, he interviewed every sailor on the Benfold, and he asked them a series of 10 questions. And you can find those 10 questions both in that book, It's Your Ship, and another book by a couple retention experts. And by the way, everyone in America right now, with the great resignation and the war for talent that's happening right now, and people just checking out of the workforce. And right now, all the business owners I'm working with, they're looking for talent.
Oh, always.
They're looking for talent, and they're looking how to retain talent. Retention is a huge topic. Well, they should all have a book called Love 'Em or Lose 'Em by Beverly and Sharon. I can't remember the last names, but Beverly and Sharon.
We talked about that, yeah.
But in the very first chapter of that book, they quote and they use Abrashoff as an example, and they use the 10 questions he asked every sailor on the Benfold. And by the way, Abrashoff didn't say he was good at this. He said, I kind of suck at this, right? I kind of suck at this. This is not in my wheelhouse. But he knew it was important. So if you suck at it and it's not in your wheelhouse, but you know it's important, then you got to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Just choose to do that hard thing. So he sat with every sailor in Benfold, got his yellow pad out, had his 10 questions, said, we're going to go over these 10 questions. And these questions, by the way, were not magic. This is not David Copperfield stuff. This is not freaking Chris Angel. This is just, so Nick, what do you like most about being in the Navy? Not much right now.
Okay.
If you could change one thing on the Benfold, if you could just wave a wand to change one thing on the Benfold, what would it be? What's going on with your family right now? Is there something that's that you could change that would make it easier for your family right now if you have a family? Same 10 questions, every sailor.
Yeah.
Now, there was several sailors who said, I guess because of rust and corrosion in the Navy, you have to paint your ship from stem to stern.
All the time.
All the time. In other words, by the time you're painting one to the other,
They're going back to the
you're
beginning.
right. Yeah. And then every so many years, they got to take this thing in the dock and scrape off tons of paint.
Yeah.
So some of the sailors said, this is stupid. There's better paint. If we use this better paint than the Navy has in its arsenal, we wouldn't have to do this often. And Abrashoff could have said what every commander, other commander said, and that is, well, it's not in the Navy system, so sorry.
Yeah.
He could have hid behind that. But they figured out a way to get that paint. Now, what did it mean to the sailors of the Benfold when this commander thought outside the box and outside the system to do what made more sense? What did they think about this guy? He's on
our side.
Yeah,
He's listening to us.
How does it feel when someone really listens to you and you feel heard? What does that feel like?
Amazing.
Feels like love.
Yeah.
Right? Who do we really listen to? People we really care about.
Right.
So, I mean, just in all, and if one sailor said, yeah, I can't afford a new washer, and a new washer shows up at their house, right? And nobody knows where it came from.
I'm going to hang around this guy for a little longer.
But when the wife says to her husband, who's serving on the Benfold, we just got a new washer in our driveway. Who's it from? I don't know. Her husband knows.
Yeah.
Because only one guy asked about that washer. And he's like, oh. And who's this guy going to tell? Is he going to go say, thank you, Commander? He might. But who's he going to tell that his wife just got a new washer? Everyone he bunks with.
Yeah.
Look what just happened on the ship. This commander listened, responded, and so this freaking $400 washing machine was worth $4 million
to them,
right?
To them, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's your ship, Commander Abrashoff, because it is your ship, and it's your family. That's your ship. That's what you say. Yeah. I hear you're always here talking about man up, be a freaking man, stop being a wuss man. Stop. You told these guys stop being a wussy bitch, Dad.
Yeah.
Just right. If you're gonna be a man, be a man. Here's what being a man is.
Yeah, you're gonna be tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your ship. It's your family.
Yeah. Put some effort into it.
It's your family culture.
Right.
You don't like it? Fix it. You're part of the problem.
Yeah. Typically, they are the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does that require? Showing up, getting up, stepping up. Mm-hmm. My wife likes the word showing up. You're not showing up for me, Kirk. Well, I'm right here. She's not talking about being there physically. What is she talking about? Right? Right? Show up for me in the way I need you to show up for me. Yeah, be present.
Yeah.
So it's your ship, it's your family, it's your... I guess what I would say finally about this book that you've asked me about is this is not a John Wayne gung-ho book. This is not about autocratic leadership. This is about servant leadership. It's about the spirit of leadership that you talk about on here most of the time. Maybe all the time. It's about heart and soul, every fiber of my being, leadership. And and the principles and the ideas are taught in such a way that I could read this thing in a elementary school faculty meeting and they would get it just as readily as they would get it if I read it in a boardroom or in a platoon meeting. It's the principles are so clear they transfer across all contexts in our lives. This book is a helpful, useful tool for someone on the journey of self-improvement.
Go buy that book.
It's your ship.
It's your ship. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up to the group this weekend too, because it just like hit home, like really hit. Because everybody thinks that not everybody, but initially you think that you have to have this like authoritative, especially in the military, like do as I say, because of my rank, and that's
You see my collar.
Yeah, it's not the way that works. Yeah, you can people will follow you, and this goes into the private workforce as well. You can listen to somebody, it doesn't mean you follow them. You know, I want to be the guy that people go, I don't care what Nick does. If he starts a new business, I'll just go with him there because he's going to take care of me. And, you know, when he goes up, I go up. And, you know, that's the kind of person that I want to be. I want to inspire people to be better. And
okay.
You know,
I'm gonna add to this for a second.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna give you guys a resource. There's a commercial that I love to use I think I've used this commercial for a decade now. And all of my leadership culture work with all these companies. They've also, if they have Kirk Weisler come speak and do a day of training or whatever, I'm going to show them.
So I've seen it.
Yeah, I'm going to show them the Cheerios commercial. So you just want to go to your search engine of choice.
My whole staff's seen that.
Okay, so if you watch this 2.5 minute commercial about peanut butter Cheerios, and it's called Cheerios How to Dad.
Mark, you watched that with us, right? Yeah.
Okay, and you just follow this dad through a morning. Just 2 minutes of his morning with his family. And again, it's a commercial, but I think it's so illustrative. So what's the word I want?
Whoever came up with it,
right,
should have been paid a lot of money.
Yeah, it's
brilliant.
It's brilliant. So again, Cheerios, How to Dad are the keywords on your search, and then just click that video of the guy in the maroon shirt and just sit back and watch. But if you show it with your team, ask them to look for attractive leadership behaviors.
Yeah, words.
Right? And then just follow this guy through 2.5 minutes of his morning. At the end of the commercial, pay special note. And enjoy the hell out of the commercial, and you will. But at the end of the commercial, pay special note to where the dad is and where his team is, his home team.
Yeah.
And he didn't say, hey, follow me to the cul-de-sac, but they're all gathered around him. In a similar way, going back to what triggered this thought was Nick said, right, people will follow you. Since I've known you, there was a time when I had you come speak to a client in Utah. You came out and just slayed the dragon at Autoleave.
Oh yeah, it was great.
So you were a guest speaker there.
Great group of guys.
Some of those guys still talk about you, and they follow you and your sweet wife. In fact, I got a text from him just recently, Mike Doherty. Mike, so if you're listening, and Mike does listen,
thank you, Mike. Hope you.
He just said my name because he thinks he's like, whoa. So right now he's saving this podcast right now to tell his friends, hey, listen, from my name. He's going to play this tonight for his kids. So there was one point you were running 7 different businesses.
Yeah.
Okay. Your speaking business, your packaging business,
had all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did a day with the Johnny Slick staff yesterday.
Yeah.
What I learned from that was some of these people at your Johnny Slick's organization today, they were with you in some of your other businesses.
Yeah.
And they didn't care what you did. They just wanted to be with you when you did it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about why. And it could be your charming personality and your dashing good looks. Okay. But we had our after actions meeting yesterday after our day of training with the Johnny Slicks team. We talked about this. And I think it's important for your listeners to just wrap their head around this for a second. I would submit to you that a few of these people that have followed you for 3 or 4 years, it's not because you're good looking, and it's not because you pay the highest dollar. And maybe you do, I don't know. But it's because of how they feel.
We try.
It's because of how they feel.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about they feel like their joy factor is maxed out. I would submit to you it's because they feel safe. I would submit to you it's because you have structure and standards that are uncompromising. And like one of your guest speakers at the retreat, right? Some of these people were in these juvenile detention centers. They're about to go out. They're about to be able to get out. So they'll do something really evil and dark so they don't have to go back home.
Right.
Because at least in this lockdown environment of the juvenile detention, there's structure, and that structure helps them feel safe.
Yep. They get 3 square meals.
3 square meals.
2 snacks.
There's standards.
PT, outside time. Yeah.
Structure.
Yep.
Let's go back to your excommunicated warrior. Right? These are the top performers. These are some of the top operators, millions of dollars of training
in the world.
These guys can go in different countries and do amazing things that nobody else can do. They're the 1% of the 1%. But they get out of the military and they fall apart because all of a sudden they're missing what? Structure. So any extent that a leader of a family, of self, right, which is a big thing we talked about this weekend, or of an institution can provide structure and standards, right, and positive routines that build, strengthen, and nurture, right? that ship is going to go great places.
Yeah.
It's not.
And I think you talked about it as well. I think that people need to feel like they're listened to, that they're a part of something. It's not just like I show up to work, and it's also an environment. We spend so much time at work compared to the rest of their life. And if your work sucks, your life's gonna suck.
Yeah.
Like that, there's just no room for a shitty working environment.
Okay, I just want to take what Nick said, and I want to just put an exclamation point behind it. So study after study have shown us that, and I don't know what it's like in our new mobile work from home. I don't know. But I mean, the research 10 years ago said that we'll spend more of our waking lives, right? More of our waking lives. If we don't count sleep time, we'll spend more of our awake time with our coworkers than the people on our home teams, our family. Yeah. You're like, well, no, that's not true. Just do the math, dude.
Do the math.
Just do the math.
Simple math, yep.
And if I'm going to spend that kind of waking hours with the people I work with, then how do I want my work environment to be? Right? And I want it to be safe. I want it to be productive. I want to be held accountable. I want to get things done. I want to put points on the board.
I want to enjoy it.
I want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I want to grow myself and others, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the Rangers, you did some crazy stuff, worked for some other people, learned who you were. The typical military transition, right? Sure. Trying to figure out where you fit into the world.
For me, Nick, I was raised in a faith but like anything else in life, you can go to some church, but if you're going to have a relationship with your faith, there's got to be a price that you pay.
Yeah.
So you can go through a class or you can get something from a class, right? Right. Whether that's a Sunday school class or a self-help class. I mean, how many times have you stood up there and you're presenting to a group of people and there's people in the front row just kind of leaning forward, taking notes, and there's people in the back with their arms crossed going, yeah, I don't.
Oh, not when I talk, Kirk.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just when I. Right. So,
no, I'm just kidding.
Right, but you get what you put in. So
yeah, of course.
So that was me. I went through the motions with my faith and I didn't have any. But somewhere along the way, I was like a late night parachute jump or something. I had this idea in my head that my chute wasn't going to open. It was going to be a night jump, low training jump. We were going to do like an 800,000 foot jump. So you used to swing, drop, and then it was aggressive training. And I had in my head that my chute wasn't going to open.
This is on an actual jump or a training?
This
like
was
a tower or something.
No, this was a night jump. It was a battalion night jump.
Out of a plane, you were having this thought.
Yeah, I was like,
that's like the worst thought to have on a plane.
Well, it is, but at the same time, you're like, hey, Sergeant, I'm just not feeling it right now.
In the 80s,
can I just wait? Next pass, right? You're gonna stand up.
Of course, you're gonna go.
You're going out the door. So anyway, so then my next thought was, this is how simple my brain is. So I'm not very smart. So this is how my brain works. My next thought was, if my chute doesn't open, maybe the reserve will work, right? But I thought, well, if I die, what do I really believe? Okay, well, in the most simple terms, in the Christian faith, you kind of think, well, you're going to go to heaven, you're going to, it's right in the most simple terms.
Yeah, right.
And I thought, well, I'm not a bad guy, so then I thought, okay, if I'm having an interview with God, what's that going to be like? I didn't really have the Baptist judgment bar, the hammer goes. I didn't really have that. The vision I had was there was going to be this, God's going to say, so let's talk. And I was like,
I got your resume in front of you.
but this was my thought. So this was an important thought. If God was going to speak to me, he had to keep it really simple, right? And the conversation he was just going to ask me one question.
Yeah.
So, what do you know about me? Like, do you want to be with me? I mean, what do you know? What have you heard? Right?
Yeah.
Do you want to be on my team? And I was like, oh, that's going to be a short conversation. But then I was like, but I had all the books, right? But I'd done no time with the books. And so that was when I began a journey of saying, you know what? How can I give 4 years to Uncle Sam and learning about myself and about my country and about what I can do and what I can do for others? And I don't spend a little bit of time learning about that. So I then really leaned into my faith. I went on a 2-year mission for my church.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went to college. So I'm 27 when I started my college days.
Oh, my goodness.
And then, so I'm 30 when I get out of college. I'm married now.
So you married Rebecca in college?
Yeah. I stalked her in school.
Good for you.
Well, it wasn't called stalking then. You just followed into the class. You wrote down the number, right? Now they call it stalking. Now they make it sound like a creepy thing. But that's how you found your wife back in the day.
That's before the internet and cell phones. That's the only way you did it.
Right? I don't want to lose her. Well, okay, 2:37 on Thursdays. 2:30.
Thursdays, got it.
I'm going to be right here
her.
when she walks out. And if my courage is up, then I'm going to talk to her. If not, the next day. So then I began my professional journey of working for a couple different companies, and then finally for art.
Yeah.
And that was a game changer when I found a mentor who, well, anytime you find a leader, someone who believes in you more than you believe in you, sees in you more than you see in you,
you lean in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a, what's Art's book that he had lots of
Don't
books,
Just Manage, Lead.
Don't Just Manage, Lead. I pass that out to a lot of the executives here. It's a great book. Thank you, Art, for that. Yep. But then after that,
I'm going to play this podcast for Art because I'm going to ask him to donate some more books for your guys.
Oh, thank you, Art.
Thank you, Art.
Go buy Art's book.
Art Coombs, COMBS.
But after that is when you kind of started your own career.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been what, last 20 years?
20 years.
20 years. And so just so you know, when I met Kirk, Kirk was forced upon me. There was we were doing a Raider Project retreat.
Well, no, he didn't say I forced myself upon him.
No,
so
he was forced on me by a third party.
Want to be very clear.
And and I was back then. I was very protective. I'm not so protective anymore. I'm like, yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. Whatever, it'll buff out.
No, but you wanted to provide your guys a great experience.
Yeah, I wanted to have a very experience. I didn't want any crazy wackos showing up and giving misinformation or some weirdo thing. So we were doing the ranch retreats and stuff like that. And she's like, the owner was like, hey, listen, I want you guys to come out, but I have one stipulation. You have to let this guy Kirk Weisler participate and lead and share some things. And I'm like, she's like, just have a conversation on the phone. I'm like, I don't like external people. I don't like new things, whatever. So I get on the phone and I'm like, I'm trying to, and I'm still in my like hardcore. Did you remember that?
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation. It was more difficult than it needed to be.
Which I made it more difficult. I'm like, so
trying to be nice.
Here, Mr. Weisler, what is it that you do? And he would never, I spent like 20 minutes on the phone with this guy and he would never tell me. I mean, he just asked me more questions. He's like, well, what do you need me to do? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what you do. How can I answer that question if I don't know what you do? Anyways, he goes back and forth, and I think I finally get off. He tricks me somehow, and I get off the phone, and I still have no idea what to do. So I show up to this ranch. I'm like, hey, guys, listen. Here's the sequence of events. We're doing this kind of therapy. We're having this kind of talk. We're doing horseback riding. We're doing yoga. I've got a yoga guy. I've got an EMDR person for therapy. I've got all this stuff worked out. And then we have this wild card named Kirk Weisler, and I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. So we'll just have to deal with that. And, of course, you shared and of course there's not a dry eye in the room, and you completely crushed it and made a whole bunch of new friends and changed a bunch of lives, as you do. But that's how we got met. And one of the biggest things that happened on that thing, I was still very much struggling in my own transition, not knowing. I was building businesses and trying to navigate just navigate my personal life, navigate my personal transition, growth of a business, trying to figure out how to raise money, how to make money, how to provide,
how to deal with betrayal.
Well, that came later.
Okay.
That came later. That was another trip, but this was, I was going through a divorce, like not trying not to lose my kids and all kinds of stuff. Anyways,
it's a lot.
And I was just all in. I was like hyper focused, no peripheral vision whatsoever, just like drudging forward. And you saw this, and I remember us being in the lodge, and like you remember the internet there? It's like
it's pretty kind of spotty.
Which is I feel like by design. Like they should just get rid of it so you don't even try.
Nick was sitting in the corner of this lodge with his laptop cracked up on one side, just because the right angle you might get a little bit of signal for 7 minutes.
And he goes, "Hey, Nick, if we went up, we took a hike up this mountain, would the world stop spinning? Like if we just took a break and just you and I just walked up this mountain, just you and I, would the world stop spinning?" I'm like, well, no shit, Kirk. Of course, the world would not stop spinning if we went on a walk.
Right.
And he's like, well, let's go. So then you went and I don't think you said anything. You just listened to me bitch for about an hour of my life. But that's where it all started. That was a beautiful walk.
It was a great walk, and the walk continues. So we sound like Frodo and Sam right now with some bromance, and I like that. But Nick was trying to facilitate an experience for there's like 15, 20 guys there. You had a big crew.
Yeah, it was a big crew that time.
And all the logistics, all the money, everything that provided this experience
difficult.
Was on the shoulders of this young entrepreneur who was trying to manage his own life, but trying to make sure these guys had a very protected and exclusive and special experience.
Yeah.
So I don't want to minimize the fact that you weren't a control freak. You were just like, I was a variable. You're like, no, I don't want a variable. This is my mission op. This is my plan.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to execute. But the owner of the ranch, who graciously opened up this ranch, right? Because every one of those beds was $2,000 a week.
Oh, I think it might have been more than that.
Probably more than that, yeah. So she opened up this ranch for these special operations guys because that's who she is. And then she said, and she just had me do staff training.
Yeah, because you did the staff training before. That's how she
with her staff.
Yeah.
So she said, Kirk, I'm going to pay you a second week. Just stay there, and some warriors are going to come out there, and I'm just going to pay you to stay there and train them.
Yeah,
and
I wasn't even paying you.
Yeah, I go, do they want me? She goes, no, they don't. No, but they'll take you. So right. Yeah. So Lucia Hatfield kind of facilitated our friendship and paid for it. But so some lessons. So Nick says that walk and talk was valuable, but let's break it down so it's helpful for your listeners.
Okay.
So what really happened there? What really happened there was something you've done that you were doing at that very moment for 20 other guys.
Yeah.
You were taking them for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
You took them up in the mountain. You took them fly fishing. You took them
horseback riding,
yoga while the river flowed around. What Nick didn't mention in his relay of everything he brought, these freaking guys brought a huge metal container filled with ammunition and weapons. So part of their yoga, meditation, quiet, feel the breeze also involved freaking taking down targets. I was like, what in the world? So we went from yoga to just bang, bang, bang. It was insane. I'd never
we brought up weights too. Remember the weight?
They brought Gold's Gym with them and pulled that out of a freaking crate. I'm like, what are you guys? Who are you guys? But what Nick wants to graciously say, hey, Kirk did this for me, was just a small reflection of what he was already doing. My point here is this. Sometimes we need to love and lead up. You know, we look down the line and we see our troops need us, our family needs us, and great. But there's someone above us, someone that we may not think. We might think they're in charge. You know what? They've got the same human needs, the same emotional needs, the same spiritual needs that you do. And sometimes they're even more out of balance than you are.
Yeah.
In that moment of their lives. And so here's this guy he was just this muscular freaking executor, you know, this bearded warrior that was in charge of these guys. And yet my heart said, and I think you're the same thing to me that your heart said to you about those guys. Mm-hmm. I wonder if I can help. And how can I help this guy? And the only thing that came to my mind was, maybe we could step away for just a minute. And that was a lovely walk.
Yeah, it was.
And isn't there something about nature that heals us all?
Yeah, that's a special place too. Hopefully that place is still in operation. It's a very special place. There's no cell phone service there. It's hard to get to.
Yeah,
you damn near kill yourself driving there.
Like the Colorado border or something. It's right north.
Yeah. But it is a very, very special,
Rewa Ranch.
Yeah.
Rewa.
Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of the beginning. That was the beginning of it all. And then as you poured into me and developed more. Now I don't know. Now I'm sometimes giving you advice every once in a while.
Yeah, no, and I love it. Listen, isn't that amazing, right? To get some coaching and some input and some encouragement and some support from people we love in all directions, up, down, and sideways.
I was laughing this weekend because you taught me so many things, and then I listened and I took it, but some things I don't know. Maybe I've turned the volume up on it a little bit because
give me an example.
Like this weekend. So like the thing that you taught me, it's like you show love and compassion, and I do too, maybe in a little more aggressive way.
It sounds different coming out of your mouth.
It sounds different coming out of my way. And they're like, it's more, whoa.
You guys will not effing, oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Murder the.
Yeah, kill the bitch. And
no, he's talking about
The inside one.
The voice, yeah.
The inside.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, they know about that.
Okay.
I'll talk about it all the time.
Okay, great.
Anyway, so now you what did she, the chief morale officer.
Chief morale officer.
Now Kirk Weisler is the chief morale officer. And what is it that you do?
Oh.
Do you have a better answer this time for?
Sure. I'll just be brief. So the Art Coombs, who I mentioned, he invited me into this new world. And here's what he said. He said, Kirk, I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. He said he was going to create 1,000 jobs in 2 years in the world of the contact center.
What year is this?
This is back in the, I don't know, 18, when I get 91. This is late 90s.
Wow.
And he invites me to be on his team. Right now, his team is just him. And I go, I don't even know what you're talking about. And he says, Kirk, he said, I know you don't. He said, but you have sunshine. And what he meant by that wasn't that I was some flower child. He meant that, like Dr. Covey says, we all carry our own weather with us. Mm-hmm. Some people carry a storm cloud. Some people carry dark clouds. Some people carry sunshine. Some people carry rain, right? So he said, you have sunshine. I can teach you the stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of teaching to do because you don't know business. But he said, I can't teach you to make the choice that you've already made about the kind of person you want to be and the kind of weather you want to have.
Yeah.
And so that couple years with him was just so fundamental and foundational. And we did create 1,000 jobs in 2 years, and I got to be a part of a team like you're part of a team and build something that was kind of unique. And for me, unbelievably educational. And we had a very unique culture. So our culture, the average industry turnover for organizations like ours was 100% annual attrition. Mm-hmm. So that's acceptable.
Yeah.
You think 100% turnover is acceptable? It was in our industry at that time.
Wow.
And ours was 17%. So it wasn't even close. And we did some other things that were kind of unique as well. We had daily profit and loss statements. And so these guys could measure their performance and their profitability on a per day basis with a daily profit and loss. But not only that helped them understand what a profit and loss was, how it worked, ROI, that kind of thing. And so there were some unique things we did. And the industry.
We have a similar thing that we do.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Daily. They know every person on the staff. We have a channel in Slack. And every day.
Oh, you get a pop?
It gets a pop in Slack. Pull it up for you.
And you know you added value or not.
The entire team knows exactly what the company's done, what the profitability. So they get this report right here.
Okay.
Your glasses are right there. So they see exactly what the total is, what the ad cost is, everything across the board down to profit.
I don't know how you would do it in this. This is beautiful, by the way.
Yeah.
And we should talk about all the psychological advantages of that. But take this now and give it to each person individually. And I don't know how you do that in this environment because you guys are shipping and creating product. And,
yeah. Well, everybody's in there.
But I'm talking about individually.
Yeah.
So in other words, in a call center, you're taking 30 calls a day, and each call is.
Oh yeah, we had that talk.
Okay, so right.
Yeah, we talk about how, because most people don't think like, well, I just ship. I'm not a profit person.
Right.
I'm just a customer service person. I don't make or break money. I am what I am. I do what I do. There's no profit involved with me.
Right.
But we actually have a profitability talk, and everybody at every level understands how each person, like we talk and we ask them, how do you make the business more money?
Do your people know they're fully burdened cost?
Yes.
So when we taught our kids, right, because a lot of kids that are making $12, $14 an hour,
yeah,
well, they just go times 8 hours. Okay, 832. So that's right. That's $112. $120. Right. So that's what they believe. If you're right.
Yeah.
Because no one's ever taught them any different. No, your fully burdened costs are like $300 a day.
Yeah.
Like it's what?
Yeah.
But you're only paying me 112, 120. Well, yeah, but there's unemployment insurance, there's depreciation of assets, there's this building.
Well, then if you mess up something, you pour something that goes up. Yeah, we have that conversation.
So these kids were like, no one had ever told them that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when they realized they were costing, and of course the stakeholders expect some kind of a profit margin. Right. So when you give them that they cost $320 a day, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Now they understand why they need to take 30 calls a day because each call is valued at $10.
Right.
Now they understand. So when you can show someone how they're putting points on the board.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is really progressive, and the tool you're using is outstanding. But go back in time 20-something years and do this. No one was doing it. And
how could you even do it in a day?
Well, because we were a contact center, everything flowed through a switch. So every email request, tick. Every request for service was a phone call, an email, or a chat request. And so we could measure everyone, and we could track every one of those to the number you open at your desk.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it was, right? So, but to share that level of information, to open the kimono, as Art would say, and share that level of information, we thought, let's try it. Anyway, the things it did for productivity, what's that old quote that says, when performance is measured, performance improves. When performance is measured and reported, the rate of performance improvement increases. So here we were giving, when performance was measured, we were measuring it daily, reporting it daily. And the third lesson we learned was, don't give people a spreadsheet. We gave them a pie chart and a floating bar graph, a picture that showed them so they could look at this picture and go,
simplifies it even more.
Yeah, they go, I could see if this is a lot green, a lot blue, and a little bit red.
I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
But if it's a lot red, red is bad. Right? And anybody could look over and go, oh man, too much
red.
And this, because it was a pie chart, they would go, oh dude, too much cherry pie. You're not bringing it in. And that's how they would tease each other.
Yeah.
It was not shaming. They're like, oh, too much cherry pie, dude. Dude, I know you
just
right?
step it up.
You got more apple pie today, man. Look at yesterday sucked. You sucked. So they would hold each other accountable. So long story short, Art then set me up to speak at an event, a large industry event. I was not qualified to speak at that event. I was not invited to speak at that event. They didn't want me to speak at that event.
So you've been pushed on a lot of people in your career.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So Art, who was a legend in the industry, even back in the day, he was the speaker at the event. 450 people came in the room to hear Art speak. With his freaking 18 years of experience.
Your first time speaking was like 450 people?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Well, I mean, we've all talked in front of people, right? So it wasn't about speaking. It was about speaking to people that had 20 years experience when you had 6 months.
Yeah.
So Art pulls me aside like 20 minutes before this speech. And he says, hey, Kirk, he said, this is a big conference in the Moscone Center. This is just a breakout. This is what they call a mini keynote. There's 5 choices up and down this hallway. And they already had Tony Robbins or somebody this morning, some Covey or somebody, some big speaker this morning. Now it's a mini keynote.
Don't worry about him. He's a nobody.
Right.
Yeah.
So now it's the mini keynote in the afternoon. There's 5 presenters. My boss is one of them. And his presentation title is the book that you love, Better Leaders, Not Better Managers. You know, don't just manage to lead or something like that. Yeah. So he pulls me aside and says, hey, Kirk, I want you to give this presentation. I'm like, yeah, well, no, you're going to give this presentation.
That's when he told you.
Yeah. So we're having this little thing in the lobby of the Moscone Center. And I can't tell you everything that happened in that conversation, but words were exchanged. Right? And, but he's my boss, and he's Art Coombs.
So you did the presentation?
No, I went to the bathroom and threw up. And for your listeners, I may have had a little diarrhea, but I got it all in the bowl. And then Art was waiting at the sink. Now here's leadership. Art's waiting at the sink. And back in the day, these were the press sinks.
Yeah.
He pushed down that handle and had cold water running, and then he began to talk to me in very short sentences and little words.
Yeah.
And he said things that were helpful, like Ranger. And he'd never called me Ranger. He wasn't a military guy. He gets it. He respects it. He loves it.
But he was tapping into something.
He was tapping into something.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
Hey, Ranger, you got this. Hey, Kirk, you were born to do this. Kirk, you're too stupid to lie. Meaning, I wasn't smart enough to tell them anything that I didn't already know. So just tell them what you know.
Yeah.
Tell them what we're trying to do at our company. Tell them why we're doing what we're doing in the way that we're doing. Tell them about the mistakes we've made, the things that we're learning. Just tell them the truth, Kirk. He said, because the truth is in short supply.
Yeah.
You're going to do great. While he's talking to me, Nick, he's got that little battery pack he's putting on my belt, clipping something to my shirt. And then we're walking. He's talking to me, short sentences. He's just repeating 6 things. You got this, Kirk. Ranger, right, da-da-da-da. And then, please welcome to the stage, Mr. Art Coombs. And he pushes me out there and says, I'll see you after. So you're going to do great, right? I go out there. My shirt's already kind of soaked to my skin. I'm looking like a deer in the headlights probably. I'm sure it was just awful. And everyone's looking at me like, this is not the confident guy in the poster. This is not the guy I know. This is not my old boss, right? Everyone knows who Art Coombs is. So I just said, the only thing I could say, I'm not Art Coombs. So now's a great time to find that session down the hall, that one you almost picked, right? I said, if you stay here, all I can tell you is this, what the last 6 months of my life have been like working for a leader, not just a manager, and the things I've learned in this industry. And nobody moved. And I gave my very first public presentation about some professional task and mission and career. And you know what, Nick? I got a standing ovation. not in the way that you might want. They weren't like, whoa, thunder, more. They were like, well, standing up to go, right?
Well done.
Right? But there was a couple times we really laughed. And that laughter was heard by the guy that was presenting next door, a guy named George Spalding, who ran his own conferences. Mm-hmm. And after everyone was shaking hands and all that stuff at the end, he was in that line. He says, who are you, kid? He said, I heard the laughter. I see these people's faces coming out. I want you to come speak at my conference. What did you talk about? I said, I don't really know. But then Art's right there. He's telling George, no, you need to have him come speak.
Yeah.
And then there were some other people in the room. And then there was the event planner, Cinda Daly. She was pissed because you don't switch speakers at the last minute of an event. You just don't do it. That's bad etiquette. That's bad form. And she gave Art and I a railing. But she also saw the feedback. And she would hire me for the next 8 years. And I've now done, well, for the last 7 years, I've been the MC at that event. 2,000 people every year. I do 2 events for them each year. And I have for, well, since that presentation. So, and then when I finally became a speaker, if you will, or a consultant, whatever you want to call it, it was from the people in the audience. Those are the people that invite me. I just do word of mouth referral work.
Yeah.
I don't have social media. I don't do what you do. And I don't have a website.
It blows my mind.
So I just go where I'm invited based on, right? But, well, I overshared. There it is. It's more than you wanted to know.
No, it's amazing. So, and it just kills me because it's those times, it's those small pivotal moments in people's lives, the scary stuff. It really is. It's the scary stuff, the uncomfortable situations that you're put in.
Yeah.
That changes your life. And it can sometimes be really bad things too. Like, I talked about this that weekend, all the bad things in my life that have happened over the last decade. Even before then, but really the last decade were all super pivotal moments to my success and my growth. And all the bad and things that you would think that you would definitely want to remove that one. I can't.
No.
I can't, because that was, if I look at it objectively, that was the pivotal moment that changed me to who I am becoming now, or who I am and who I'm becoming. And so we have to kind of welcome all of that.
Oh my gosh, yes. So a couple things. I'm really a big fan of Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy right now. These guys have written 3 books together, or Benjamin Hardy's written 3 books about things he's learning with and from Dan Sullivan, who does coaching like you do for entrepreneurs and people trying to get better.
Yeah.
So one of the things he talks about in his book that I thought was an interesting concept is history static, or is history still, does history have transformative power? And the main idea here is that this really awful thing happened to us back in the day.
Yeah.
And it sucked.
Yeah.
And hopefully we learned a lesson from it. But you know what? It can teach us forever.
Yeah.
Now, as we've learned and grow, we can look back at that same tragic event and we can draw another lesson from it. Mm-hmm. It never stops losing its capacity to teach us more.
100%.
And help us prepare for the future. Second thing I want to take from your debrief, your short debrief of my too long story. One of the exercises that I got from a friend of mine that I love to do is, and any one of your listeners, I heard about this. So a friend of mine called me on the phone and said, Kirk, we just did this thing. I think you should do it. He said, we really liked it. So I got a verbal description. I'm about to give you the same verbal description, and you can execute. Basically, you draw a star on a piece of paper, and by each leg of this star, this 5-point star, you draw a line. And I call it the 5-star leader exercise. And what you do now is you write down the name, or have your team write down the name of 5 leaders that have helped shape their life or the way they think about leadership.
Yeah.
Then I qualify it. I ask them not to put down names of immediate family members. We don't want Uncle Bob and Mom on there, right? And not that we want to diminish family, but we want to step outside the family circle for this exercise.
Yeah.
And I ask them not to put down the names of Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus. We don't want to diminish anyone's faith.
Yeah.
But I want it to be people they've met, not a tape they listened to or a book they read.
Yeah.
5 people that have shaped your life. And then we just invite everyone to tell a 3-minute story about that person. And 3 minutes is not a lot of time, so you got to think about it. You have 3 minutes to tell a story about why that person made your 5-star. and we're in groups of 4 or small, intimate teams of 10 or less. You can't do this large room, small, intimate groups. And if I got a big group, I just put everyone in teams of 4. And so 3 people lean forward, and we ask them, don't think about your 5 stars or what you're going to say. Just think about what Nick is saying. And now we just listen to you. We just drink you in for 3 minutes. And I'll tell you what, anyone who'll do this, I promise you a couple things. One, I promise you, the room will be filled with a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Because as soon as people start sharing, gratitude, humility, appreciation, joy fills the room. It fills the room. 3 people become silent witnesses to that pivotal moment you just talked about, these pivotal moments. Okay, now we go around the circle. I model what it looks like. We go around the circle. Everyone shares. Now I've heard Kirk's story, my story, and 3 other stories. I've got 4 stories of on my star I did not tell.
Yeah.
Now we ask him this question. What, if anything, do all these stories have in common? Wait a minute. Kirk's this guy. These 3 people I just met, right? I don't know who they're talking about. I got my 5 people. What do all these stories have in common? And they almost always have these 3 things in common. You ready? The reason these people made our list is they believed in us more than we believed in us at some point in our life. Second thing, they pushed us in ways we would not have pushed ourselves.
Yeah.
Not so we would fail, but so that we could see that we could. And they weren't surprised that we could. We were the only ones surprised. We hated them for the push, but we loved them later, and you can never shrink back to where you were before. You now know what you can do. And the third thing is, we ask them, why'd they do that? Why'd they do that? And then we ask them, how were they with accountability? Did they hold you accountable? So they believed in us, they pushed us, and they held us accountable. Those 3 things, 99.9% of the respondents, they share those in common. So wait, what do I do with this now? Well, if I was doing this with Johnny Slick's team, if I was doing this with you and 4 other people,
Yeah.
what I now know, because every one of the 4 of them just told me that they love leaders who push them, they love leaders who believe in them, and they love leaders that hold them accountable. And I just heard them say that. Now I can look at them and I can say, you know what? I have not been a great leader to you. That changes today. Because I want to somehow make your list. I want to have this sacred ambition to be one of your 5. And I'm going to do that by believing you like I've never believed in you before. And I'm going to show that belief by pushing you like I've never pushed you before and holding you accountable to what I see in you that I don't think you see yet. And that is how amazing and great and capable you are. See, they just provided the language and the opportunity for you to step up as a leader and be the guy that you should have been being all along.
Yeah. But you have to do that. You have to go through that thing.
Well, I have to, I guess, but I mean, it's one way to get there. That's how I get there.
I think that when I'm talking about the like we were talking about the law of averages and the universe, and I think it's going to happen. I think you're going to have to go down that road. Right. At some point, everyone's going to have that thing. I think not everybody is getting to there's no end, but getting to that place without going through some muck. Yes. And learning that lesson.
Dude, have you already told your muck story on this?
I don't know.
Maybe we should close with the muck. I don't know when we're going to close, but maybe we should close with the muck story. No. I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere, but let's roll the muck story.
I think I've talked about it before, maybe, but we have, as people in the Agogi. I look at that. This is our coaching group and the tribe of men that we have that are better than themselves and getting ripped in their 40s and 50s.
Even 58?
58. Yeah. We got a guy 70. I think Joe's 71, 72.
I asked Nick if I was too old at 58, and he goes, "Stop being a West Kirk. I got 72.
Yeah,
you might be able to do it.
You might be able to do it. But when you go on this journey, and I talked to them about this because they all hit it, right? They all hit the muck.
Yeah.
And what I align it to is anytime that you're going to try to do something for yourself that's going to better yourself. Maybe it's lose weight, maybe personally grow, start your own business, branch out on your own. It doesn't matter what it is. Go to a conference, which I found out that, I was telling this story to the guys this weekend, and I didn't know, I guess there was like some logistical restraints or some issues coming into here that caused some problems. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, almost didn't make it here. And then, of course, we changed some lives this weekend. Yeah. And anyway, so I explained, I said, anytime that you are, I equate it to the new series Loki. I don't know if you've watched that, but
I have to. Yeah. I have a Marvel daughter. So,
you've got to.
Yeah, Ashlyn, she's my Marvel daughter. So.
Yeah. So they have this TVA, the Time Varying Authority. So they have the master timeline. And anytime that somebody tries to, does something that branches off and creates a new timeline, right? I'm not going to go in the main timeline. I'm going to do my own timeline. Right. Well, they have this unit of people that go and basically nuke that timeline. They just cut it off. They go attack them. They just kill everybody in that whole universe. And so that's what I now, I don't know, you want to call it society, the universe, the law of averages, law of mediocrity, whatever you want to call it. They want everybody in the herd. They want everybody in the flock. And anytime you try to better yourself with nutrition, fitness, entrepreneurship, personal growth, anything that's going to take you away from the norm, away from the flock, it's going to separate you, there is a universal pull that's going to push you back. It's going to push you back. And that could be in, the form of you're going to this conference that's going to change this conference, this meeting, this event, this retreat, whatever it is, could be the catalyst for the next 60 years of your life being different. This one piece of information, this one experience, this one meeting, this meeting this individual. Hell, this could be your meeting your wife at this conference, right? Could change your life. But the universe is going to lose a bag, flight delays.
Opposition in all things.
Always. Your car is going to get a flat. Mm-hmm. Somebody in your family is going to call you and say, oh, this happened. I need you. You can't go. I need you. Something you're going to, the bank's going to take your money by accident. You're going to be broke. I don't know. No, so this thing happens, right? And like I get these clients and they're like, they start making progress, and all of a sudden, boom, nothing. And they're like, man, it's hard to wake up. I'm unmotivated. I'm just struggling, Nick. And like the weight's not moving. I'm doing all the things. It's just, I just feel that I'm stuck. And I'm like, no, you're not stuck. You're in the muck. You're in the muck. And what the muck feels like is you're going through life with center block feet, walking through roof and tar. Yeah. That's what it feels like. Yeah. And you're just like, oh, every step is just like you're pulling that tar off. And
that voice.
Yeah. The inner bitch is like,
says, it's because you're not supposed to be doing this.
Yeah. This is the wrong direction.
This is the wrong direction for you right now.
Yeah. Just go back. It's easier. Yeah. It's easier to go back.
This muck that's a sign from God.
It's a sign from God.
Turn around.
Yeah, turn around. But the problem, Kirk, is the line of that muck is typically, you getting through that muck is typically like a couple steps more forward. Yeah. And they quit right before they get through the other side. And once you get through the other side, man, it's beautiful.
It's darkest before the dawn kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's really right there. It's that line. It's that line. And they go, oh, man, this is too hard. And they quit. And they go back. And they go back in the flock. They go back in the law of average. They go back to mediocrity and the average and to continue to live their life unfulfilled and seeking pleasure over purpose. But the ones that that have the right people in their life, the ones that weather the storm, that weather the muck, when they get to the other side, man, it's so beautiful. All their things that they want, all the things that they desire, and the things that are going to change their life and become like your wife says, we're human becomings. That they're becoming this other thing. It's all right there, but people quit. They do right before the end.
You remind me, the Loki reminds me of that movie, The Adjustment Bureau, with Matt Damon, right? And in the end, right, that timeline, they no, you can't do that. We can't do that. And they kept bumping opposition between him and this girl. Yeah, right? This him and Emma, whatever her name is, and finally he just said, "Follow me through one more door. What's going to be on this side? I don't know. I just know I want to be there with you. Let's go." Kind of a thing. No, same concept. It's lovely. I think that one of the things that happened in this retreat, and you use the language, we changed some lives. And maybe so. I think some catalysts had to present this opportunity. Some catalysts had to present these guys with doors. I remember when someone told me that, hey, yeah, Kirk, you really changed my life. I'm like, no, I don't remember being there for that. Right? But you share an idea or an insight.
Yeah.
And if they decide to pick it up and act on it, it's it's the things that we do. Ralph Waldo Emerson is the quote that I'm really liking. He says, do the thing, and you'll have the power. I think that's one of the great gifts. This retreat, the way you set it up, the way these guys showed up with the adversity that they faced, they now that, man, I thought this was my only door. Oh no, guys, there's a lot of doors. There's a lot of doors, but you got to reach out, grab that knob, and open it.
Yeah,
and they did. And they walked through the door into the ice. They walked through the door onto the mats. They walked through the door and personal growth and learning. They walked through the door and keeping journals. I was amazed. Here's these guys that are just jiu-jitsu freaking monsters. And a little bit later in the day, they're there with a pen and an empty notebook, just leaning forward like essential truths from God were going to be spoken. They were going to capture it. When that guy, your friend Jeff showed up, it was so quiet.
Yeah.
There's churches that are not that quiet. Right? Empty churches that aren't that quiet.
Yeah.
As these guys. And Jeff was just saying, here's some things I've learned.
Here's 5 things.
5 things I've learned in 30 years of working with adjudicated kids. And they just wanted everything he had to offer and more. And I just feel like that beautiful weekend that you and the Radar Project provided for all of us was just opportunities for us to just walk through more doors.
Yep.
Right? And just say, no, don't mess with my timeline.
So if you're going through the muck, don't quit.
Don't quit.
Just keep going.
Do not quit.
Yeah. So speaking of that,
yeah,
Kirk, you have a great talk about doing hard things.
And you think about my Rebecca, huh?
No, not necessarily that one, but just in general, when you're having a bad day, when you're doing hard things, what do you do? How do you get through hard things? Or do you stay there? It's kind of like what you talked about on the book.
Yeah, I think we have to give ourselves some grace, Nick. I think sometimes, like when COVID hit, I told you, I just in a very vulnerable way, I said, man, I have a people addiction.
Yeah,
I want to be with people, and I'm used to being with people, and I'm used to people asking me to be with them, and that's been a pattern.
That's your whole business.
That's my whole business, and I can Zoom and I can, talk into a microphone, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
And so, but pouting wasn't an effective response to COVID. So pouting didn't work. And not only that, I didn't want to be a pouter. Well, my wife told me I was pouting. I said, I'm not pouting. And she told me I was depressed. I go, no, depression is something that happens to somebody else. I'm not depressed. I'm a happy guy. And, I didn't want to own it. I didn't want to own up to it. I didn't want to walk up to it. And and I didn't follow my own advice. And I built a tent right there.
Yeah.
I built a tent in this freaking muddy, awful, depressing place. I built a tent, and then I pretended that I didn't have a tent. No, it was awful. And not only that, then the shame of realizing that you have done all the things you've encouraged people not to do, that you've avoided
for 20 years.
You've avoided doing, but now you're doing it. Like, how did I get here? And so any man, any woman who finds himself there, stop living in the shame of being there. It's not about being there anymore. Don't get trapped there, and don't freaking double down. Right? Ask for some help.
Yeah, don't
ask for some help and freaking get you.
I think you said it this weekend. Yeah, it's okay to have a bad day.
It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to have a bad week. It's okay to have a bad month. But don't freaking build a tent there. Don't camp out. And when you realize you're camping out, well, you know what? It's time to stop camping out. And so I did. And you helped me with that. And my wife helped me with that. And then I just had to own it. Like, oh, I guess this can happen anytime in my life, anywhere in my life. And so why did I let my guard down? Why did I spend this some time? So I need to learn some lessons from that, because I will have a bad day in the future. It'd be asinine for me and naive for me to think I'm not going to have a bad day.
Right.
So what am I going to do differently next time when that unexpected thing happens that takes away everything that I thought was me?
Yeah.
And I got to fix that. And so you and I have talked about that, and you've become my coach and my mentor and my assist partner in that. I'm so grateful. So a couple things, guys. grace for grace. If you're having a bad day, all right, have it. Look at it carefully, right? Learn from it, but don't build a tent there. Don't camp out. And if you've been camping out too long, don't go, oh, well, I've been here so long. Stop.
Just pull the stakes up.
Pull the stakes or freaking burn down the tent.
I like that one better. Just burn the tent. I'm not coming back to this tent.
Let me share one other idea kind of related to this. When I was really involved in this role in my church for a few years as a counselor, if you will, to a lot of men, these are good men. These are men that want to be good, but they had early experiences with exposure to pornography, sexuality, masturbation. They just, so now they've tried to live pure lives, godly lives as they define that. Mm-hmm. And then somewhere they have a slip up and they find themselves looking at things again and going into behaviors, and all of a sudden they feel like, man. So here's this man. He's now had a 7-minute experience with pornography and masturbation. Mm-hmm. Right? And he's 40 years old. And he sits there in the shame of this slippage back into that old behavior that he thought he'd buried as a young man. Mm-hmm. And he thought he'd made things right with God, and he was a high moral figure, and he'd been true to his wife and all these things. But right? But he's feeling everything he's ever done has been erased because of this mistake, this slip up, if you will. And I think what the language that was given to me in that moment was, the direction was to just say, let's step back from this for just a second, right? Are you saying to me, right? Because what you're saying to me is that nothing you've ever done matters, right? That you are your worst 7 minutes of the last freaking 7 years.
Yeah.
Because it's been 7 years since you've had an incident like this. And what you're telling me is that you're not the 7-year guy, you're the 7-minute guy. The lesson I draw from that is you and I, Nick, are broken, fallible, weak, right? Sometimes that B voice wins.
Yeah.
And we're willpowered out, and we give in and we give up for a minute or two. But you and I are not our worst 2 minutes of the day. That's not who we are. There's a lot of other minutes in the day, over 500, and I'm not my worst 2 minutes.
Right.
But you know what? If I think I'm not going to have a bad 2 minutes, that's also naive. But now I know, you know what? There's going to be times when I'm just not the guy. Own that. Say you're sorry for that. But also acknowledge, oh my gosh, who are you most of the time, Nick? Who are you most of the time, Kirk? And most of the time, you know what? You're a committed father. You're a dedicated husband. You're a pretty nice guy. And so you had a bad day. And so what? 58 years? And you spent a couple year and a half pouting? Not sure what to do, not sure if you could get up, walking through the muck and just going, God, this sucks. I suck. And saying all the wrong things to yourself about yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay. Am I that guy? Am I that 18-month guy? Or am I the guy that for 56 and a half years was trying to do other things? Oh, yeah. Does that make sense? So the 2 minutes is figurative.
Right. Right.
But the principle, I think, is eternal. You've got a little boy. I've got 6 kids. And
some grandbabies.
And they, like me, occasionally make some really dumb choices. I'm like,
Yeah.
I cannot believe that just happened.
Yeah.
But it just did.
If you have enough kids, I mean,
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, Nick. And then we probably should talk about the diesel story, right? Here's the thing. When my Brooklyn called and said, Dad, I was just in an accident, my first words were, are you all right?
Yeah.
Where are you? And I was heading out the door.
Yeah. No kidding.
Right? I don't think God is any different than that. I don't think this loving Father in heaven that people talk about or hope is there, or maybe they don't believe that, but I just don't think that any eternal force that is a part of our being and well-being cares about those moments.
Yeah.
More than they care about us and what we want to do next.
Yeah.
And so who am I to try to have a different approach or mindset than that?
Mm.
I look at my best moments, my very best moments as a father, and I imagine I'm still an imperfect, broken man trying to love these kids and help them become their best selves. And then I look behind me or up in the heavens, and I imagine there's some force, some being that I call God, that wants the very same thing for me, but in an even better way than I can give it to my own kids. And in that moment, you know what? My mistakes become very, very transactional.
Right.
Because my journey is transformational.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. So Nick won't tell the story. I will. At the retreat for these freaking warriors and his friend Kirk, Nick provided a vehicle for everyone to use. It was an old vehicle. It was not a shiny vehicle. It was not a new vehicle. There was some...
I'm actually, now thinking about it, I'm glad it wasn't a new vehicle.
Shut up. Just let me finish the story. So I did not drive the vehicle, although I was the first one there. The other guys drove the vehicle. Now I'm taking the vehicle to the meeting with the Johnny Slicks team. And I'm going to drop a guy off.
Well, first of all, you volunteered for the Raider Project.
Okay.
And then we hired you.
Oh, for Johnny Slicks.
Johnny Slicks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
just set the precedence on that day you're getting paid.
Okay. So on this payday, I'm in the company. I wouldn't call it the company vehicle, but nonetheless, and this is an important story. So, and I'm going to drop off one of Nick's brother-in-law. He says, "Hey, Kirk," he said, "Can you drop me?" It's great. So we jump in the car, and I'm not making excuses, but I'm thinking he's been in this car before. Right? Nick already said to the guys, "Hey guys, this car runs a little rough, but when you start it up, it's going to shake. But when you get on the road, it'll smooth out." And sure enough, I got in the car and it's shaking a little bit. Not a problem. I put it in reverse. I back up 4 feet into a tree. But I just barely put it in reverse. There's no acceleration. It was just hard enough to not even hurt the tree or the bumper of the car. But certainly Nick's brother-in-law, his coffee is now in his lap, and he's not so. So with that,
hopefully it wasn't that hot.
With that glorious start to our day, speaking of adversity, we fixed that. The fuel line is below empty. It's not on the E. It's below. It's between the two bars. It's in the freaking middle of the E. So there's a gas station 1 mile down the road. We pull in there, and I jump out, and the brother-in-law jumps out. He goes, "I'm gonna get a coffee. Do you want something?" "I'm gonna get a coffee that's not on my shirt." "Do you want something?" "No, I'm good." "Sorry about that." "No, it's all good." So I fill up the car, $62. I'm like, no, this, and the gas on the on the East Coast is $3.33 a gallon. I'm like, this is incredible. There's no way I should have put $66 in this car. It had a big tank. I thought. And then we got in the car and it was rough again. And then the closer we got to the gym where I'm going to drop Seth off to work out with Nick, the rougher the car was running. Well, this is weird, but I'm just going to drop Seth off and I'm going to go meet the Johnny Slicks team. So we pull in the gym parking lot and the car gives its last breath and dies. And the reason that happened was because I filled the car with gasoline and the car turns out to be
a diesel.
Now, I share that story not to illustrate just how stupid I am, because it was an old car and there was no labeling, and the brother-in-law, anybody could have said something, and I just never even occurred to me. So lots of excuses, but the bottom line was I just filled Nick's gift car with gasoline, and I want to just show you his response. As he stands outside and says, "Hey, I'll see you after my workout. I'll meet you there, Johnny Slicks team." I try to start the car and smoke comes out and he goes, "Turn it off." And he goes, "What'd you put in it?" I said, "Just filled up with gas." He said, "Oh, gas?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Kirk, it's a diesel." And to my horror, I don't even know what that means. I don't know how much damage I've done. I don't know if the car's going to recover. Here's what I know. That car's not going anywhere.
No.
And here's this busy guy named Nick who's running all these companies. And now he's got to figure out how to get his guest speaker to the team. But here's what Nick said next. He said, "I guess you're taking my truck." That was his first response to me. Now, here's what that means. That means there was no judgment. There was no condemnation. There was no shame. There was no, we're going to laugh about it later, and he's probably going to never forget it. I'm probably going to hear the story again many times, but it'll be done in a loving way. But my main point was, now he's got to figure out how he's going to, after workout, which is his total focus with his brother-in-law, who he loves, he's got to figure out how to get arrangement, travel for himself. Right? There's a lot of inconveniences that are happening because Kirk put the wrong fuel in the car. But none of that is mentioned. None of that is given off in body language and tonality. Right? That's how quick. Not only was I instantly forgiven, there was no need to forgive because there was no grudge or resentment taken. Does that make sense? I think once we as men can get to that place where we're not reacting at all, where we live on the edge of proactivity, that no matter what happens around us, it doesn't change who we are or how we show up in our lives as men and leaders and learners, on the planet Earth. And I believe, this is my belief, I believe whatever you want to call this personage that I call God, I believe that's exactly how he operates. I believe that with every fiber of my being, that he'll look back on my little journey of mortality, and I'll be thinking about putting diesel in the gas tank, and he'll be thinking about, man, I'm so glad you're here. Where do you want to go next? You can take my truck. Right? That's what I believe. There was so much grace in that moment, Nick. It was. I wish somehow that could have been a non-staged filmed event, because I could use that 3 minutes, and I could talk about that in my leadership seminars until I died.
Well, you probably will, and that's these little moments that happen. You embarrassing, not embarrassing, doesn't really matter, but they are the sum of who you are and your experiences and what you're able to offer the world. So you can't really change them. I wouldn't change that event to anything. Because again, we talk about, I got there and I jokingly told the story of how your morning had begun. So here you are, hired to inspire and motivate and change some lives.
I just brought in a $10,000 speaker for you guys. Let me tell you what he did to the car this morning. No.
And anyways, but I said that I was like, the universe is gonna push back a little bit.
Yeah, and it did.
Yeah, it's no big deal. We had a freaking outstanding, great day.
You have got a great team.
And so Kirk's got 3 books now, right? Three. 2, but 2 are they're all great, but 2 I want to mention. The Dog Poop Initiative. These are children books, so even you guys can read them. And I highly suggest getting them directly from Kirk, right? That's the solution.
Sure.
Not Amazon.
Sure.
If you must go through Jeff Bezos, do so. But
yeah, let's just leave Jeff. Let him be on the blue horizon, his flying
penis
ship.
So the Dog Poop Initiative is a children's book.
Is it?
I consider it a children's book. However, that book is bought by who? The biggest purchaser of that book is who?
Boeing Aircraft. They use it with their Six Sigma Lean initiatives.
Yeah.
So 95% of all the buyers of that book are corporate. It's great.
Delta is one of them as well, right?
Delta. It's great for team meetings.
Yeah.
It really just talks about eliminating blame, complaining. The subtitle of the book says it's the number 2 book because of the poop metaphor there for dealing with ownership and accountability in your organization.
And so I highly suggest all of you guys go buy that book from Kirk. And then the second one, for productivity and leadership. I mean, I guess they're both, but I mean, the Dog Poop Initiative is great, but for some reason, and maybe it's because your son's video, I don't know, but the Cookie Thief book just hits so hard, so home with me.
Why is that? Why do you think it does?
I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but it has a special place in my heart. The Cookie Thief has a very deep, special place in my heart. And I just love that book. And I love Jake's video when he was 16 years old.
Can your team put a link to his video below the?
Yeah. Mark, can you do that? Yeah, you can do that.
So let me tell you why that the Dog Poop book is an original story to me. The Cookie Thief story is, there's 1,000 versions of that story that go back as far as 100 years. The reason I love that story that you love, and the reason I made it my second book, was because I needed the story so much. In this way, one of my dark superpowers is rushing to judgment. And I know that about myself. And a leader knows themselves and seeks self-improvement.
That's right.
So a lot of times I find myself showing up having an opinion about people before I have any information about people. And I saw this pattern in my life. It wasn't healthy. And I heard this story and I thought, man, I need that story. So I took the story and I versioned it into my version of a book. And
Kirk loves cookies, so that's why.
Yeah. And so now any cookie reminds me of the story, and I get to share that story a lot. And the more we share these stories that help us, they help keep us in line with our commitments that we've made to ourselves and others about the kind of person. And so that book is a self-help book for Kirk Weisler. And if you like it too, awesome.
I absolutely love that book, man. Anyway, so go buy those books.
Hey, let's do this. If any of your people, if you decide to go to my website and buy a book, that's great. So, but put in the comments that you heard about it on this podcast, and I will double your order or more.
I don't do that.
No, I don't mind doing it. I'd be delighted to do it.
Oh, there you go. If you made it to the end,
if you made it to the end,
for the 4 people listening right now.
No, so if you just heard Nick say that and you haven't already clicked off, put that in the comments. I'll send you 6 books.
But anyways, and where can people find you? Because you're a little bit.
Oh, just KirkWeisler.com. So Kirk and then Weisler.
Yeah, we'll put it all in the show notes below in the description of the videos and whatnot.
Nick.
And believe it or not, he is on Instagram. I think he's got a Facebook somewhere, but he is on Instagram.
Just
every once in a while.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. That's where the high rollers. See, that's how you know. That's how you know that Kirk's a high roller in the corporate world.
That's what it is. Because he doesn't do social media like Nick does.
But anyways, Kirk, thank you so much for being part of our lives. Thank you for pouring into this weekend and pouring into our company and helping us get to reach our objectives.
Oh my gosh. Absolute pleasure. Thank you guys. Thanks to all you listeners out there. And I'll look for your comments on your book orders because I am going to do everything I said I'm going to do.
All right. And you guys know the deal. Screenshot this. Please share this with your friends. Don't be an information hoarder. If it affected you, it's going to affect one of your friends. So screenshot this, tag us, and we'll share it out as well. And then drop us a review. And then other than that,
can I say always forward?
Yeah, I'll say never quit. So never quit, never surrender.
Always forward.
And we'll see you guys on the next episode.